all humility, gentleness, and patience. Accept each other with love, and make an effort to preserve the unity of the Spirit with the peace that ties you together. You are one body and one Spirit, just as God also called you in one hope. There is one Lord, one faith, one baptism, and one God and Father of all, who is over all, through all, and in all. So ends the reading of God's holy word. Please rise for a second.
For those of you who have Facebook and are friends with Lynn, then you know that Lynn's going to be leaving us. Lynn Wall. She accepted a job in Missouri. Do you know what town that is? R-O-L-L-A. Okay. Something that begins with an R. She'll be going to the state of Missouri. So I guess they want her pretty quick, and hopefully she'll be able to join us a Sunday or two before she goes, at which case then we need to figure out what we'll do as a going away thing for Lynn. Lynn's been a part of this church for a lot of years, back on Wyckoff when we were there. So, and as you know, she's got quite a voice and contributes quite a bit to our worship service. Well, at the end of service last week, I overheard a conversation that some folks were having that were engaged in a fellowship discussion. There was talk of the weather, as you can imagine, and there was talk about the well-being of some relatives and that sort of thing. But then there was talk about how frustrating or maybe silly it is when we'll all of a sudden learn of some research project that tells us something that we've been doing or consuming for a number of years is very deadly, that it attacks our health. And then within probably a year or less, there's discussion about how someone else found out just the opposite. That all of a sudden what now it was detrimental to us actually is a benefit to us. The product that came to mind that I was thinking of, and maybe the discussion was eggs. You know, for the longest time, eggs were considered pretty bad for you because of what it can do, or the yolks anyway can do to your blood vessels. And then I think what came out last week is that eggs now are pretty good for you. Have you ever noticed that? Have the rest of you noticed that we'll hear something negative about something that we've been doing, and then it's just the opposite, so you kind of throw up your hands and say, I don't know what to believe on what we should do? Notice that? Well, I got to thinking after that discussion last week, are there any products out there that they did come out and say was not good for you and have remained on that not good list? And I think a couple of things come to mind. Number one is asbestos. We know now that asbestos, particularly if it's free and floating and not encased when it's being used, can be very detrimental to our lungs. A form of lung cancer is attributed just to asbestos. And the other thing that you, of course, think about is the problem of smoking and how smoking is pretty bad to our health. We know so much today about smoking and its effects, and what happens to, actually, one of the things, what happens to our blood vessels when we do smoke. Now, we know that that is a case, but if we were to learn of something else that would be as harmful to us as smoking, that had the same effect that smoking has on us, would we be interested in changing our habits or in doing something different? How many people here this morning are ex-smokers? I know I am. We have several. Likely you quit for health reasons. I mean, you realized that it just wasn't good for you, and you took that stand to correct that problem. But if there was something out there that had the same kind of an effect on your body, particularly your blood vessels, as smoking, would you be interested in changing your lifestyle or changing your behavior? But perhaps more importantly, would you be interested in helping somebody else that you know and perhaps are close to that were doing or were faced with the behavior that's as dangerous as smoking? Would you take it upon yourself to help them? Would you take it upon yourself to bring them along and get them out of that situation that is so harmful? I think most of us, if not all of us, would be very interested in doing just that. We would be eager to help someone out if we saw something in their behavior that we know is very harmful. We would do everything that we could in order to help them. So what is this particular dangerous problem or behavior that we have today that, according to research at Harvard University, is as detrimental to our health as smoking? I'll give you a hint. It is running rampant throughout the United States. It is increasing at an ever-increasing rate. And it's something you really wouldn't expect would be happening. You wouldn't expect it because we today feel so connected with our fellow man. We feel so connected because we have devices, little what's called a smartphone, that we can be in touch with people. We have something like Facebook that keeps us in tune with people we would normally catch up with. So why in the world is there an epidemic of loneliness in this country? And it is at epidemic levels. The research at Harvard proves that just like smoking, loneliness has the same effect on our body. Now, you wouldn't think that that would be the case because they really don't seem close at all or even connected. The problem is when we get into a lonely state, what we have in our bodies today as a defense mechanism that's known as the fight or flight defense mechanism, our bodies begin to prepare for some kind of an injury where we would need to have bleeding stopped. It's an increase in the protein called fibrinogen. And fibrinogen levels in lonely people actually exceed the fibrinogen levels in smokers. And when there's an increase in fibrinogen, there is a greater chance of blockage, heart attack, and stroke becomes very real. So you wouldn't really think that loneliness would have that same kind of an effect. But it does. And because of that, we are looking at ways that we can improve our relationship with other people. Now, when we started this series about 3 weeks ago, we talked about what needs to be done in order to find friends. Last week, we walked on dangerous ground when we talked about communicating and developing a relationship with your spouse. Bonnie still hasn't forgiven me for a couple of the things I said, but maybe after today, I hope it doesn't get worse. So, the point is, you not only want friends, you need friends. You need friends from a health standpoint. God put Adam in the Garden of Eden, and the first thing that God ever thought or was recorded in what he thought that was in any way negative about the earth. The first thing he said was that it's not good for Adam to be alone. He then, of course, created Eve. You need friends. We need friends. You were made for friendships. You were made for relationships. Sound, deep, solid relationships. In Ecclesiastes, it's from a verse that is used or quoted quite often in many weddings. It states the advantages of two being better than one. Real friendships are never, ever accidental. They're made. They are developed. They are planned. They are cultivated, nurtured, and built. And throughout the Bible, we find all the things that we need in order to cultivate close friendships. We're going to cover just a few of those today. First, we find that in the book of Proverbs, as we said when we launched this series, that Solomon has quite a bit of good information throughout Proverbs that relate to building relationships. The first thing that he said was that we are to be committed. If we're going to have a close friend, we must be committed to that friendship. Proverbs 18:24 says, "A man of many companions may come to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother." Is it possible to have too many friends? Can you have too many friends? Actually, you can if you neglect the close friends, if you don't work to cultivate closeness. The next thing that we learn from Proverbs is we must be considerate. Proverbs 17 says, "He who covers over an offense promotes love, but whoever repeats the matter separates close friends." Talking about being considerate. And that shows itself by the fact that you accept the person as they are. You accept everything about them. You forgive their blunders. You don't kick them when they're down. If you ever want to know if you have any good close friends, make a mistake and see what happens. You'll either have people coming into your corner and supporting you, or you'll have people pointing out that mistake over and over. Next, we must be confidential, and that means we keep secrets. Proverbs 11 says, "A gossip betrays confidence, but a trustworthy man can keep a secret." Now, in addition to the confidentiality, we must be able to provide honest and candid feedback. Proverbs 27 says, "Better is open rebuke than hidden love. Wounds from a friend can be trusted." A friend is somebody who will say something to you, and even though it hurts, if it's the truth, they tell it to you, point it out to you in love and in kindness. They are candid with you. A true friend will level with you. Real friends are like toothpaste. They come through in a tight squeeze when the pressure's on. Next, it says that we must be consistent. It's probably the greatest characteristic of a true friend of all that we're covering today. A real friend can be counted on. They are dependable. Proverbs says, a friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for adversity. A genuine friend is in your corner when you are cornered. A real friend sees you through any hardship without being judgmental. And finally, Proverbs tells us that we must be constructive. Proverbs says, as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. Real, genuine friends build each other up. They stimulate each other to grow. They bring out the best in each other. And that's where we're going to spend a little bit more time today, is being able, what can we do to bring out the best in a friend or an acquaintance that you want to make a friend. It's very important to do just that because of all the benefits that come from it. How can we bring the best out in somebody else? How can we help someone else truly understand God's purpose for them and in their life? Very important things that we can do. How can we do that and help them? Somebody once said that the way to success is to focus on the success of others. Ask any businessman today if that's true. Giving and dedicating our lives to the well-being of those that are close to us is the undisputed method of greatness. You not only bring out their success, but when you do so, it brings out your success. When you do this, you also bring out greater character within the individual. They understand God's calling and they live it. And as you do that for somebody else, you do it for yourself as well. It's a bit ironic, however, that if that is your only motive, if you are only out to improve yourself, then it will fail. All of us have people around us in our lives that we would like to build up, that we would like to help, that we feel a closeness and a strong desire to help them become everything God wants them to be. We need to become people builders. Here's a brief overview of a couple things that you can do that will help you bring out the best in people. You build people up with kindness, not by criticism. Kindness is giving people what they need or want and not what they deserve. Jesus gave people these things, the same things that we are called to give to others to uncover their whole and true potential. So to begin, the first thing you want to do is to give somebody a personal challenge. We all tend to do better and do more if we're challenged. In Ephesians, that Bonnie read to us today, I urge you to live a life worthy of the calling that you have received. Paul is urging people to make their life count. He's challenging them. He's saying, don't waste your life. Be all that God has made you to be. Make your life count. Why is that? Because we all need a cause or a project or a dream that calls forth the best we can give in our lives. It strengthens us when we do so. For 12 years, the Green Bay Packers won only 30% of their games. By 1958, they were 1-10. They had a losing season for 12 years in a row. It was a terrible team. Along came a guy by the name of Vince Lombardi, and he was known as a people builder, bringing the best out of people. During the next 9 years at the Packers, he had 9 winning seasons. They beat their opponents 75% of the time and walked away with 5 national championships, including the first 2 Super Bowls. He turned a losing team into a winning team. Lombardi was a people builder. He knew how to bring out the best in people by issuing personal challenges to each of the players. Jesus showed us that as well. And Jesus also showed us that we are to give these people our complete confidence. Many of us can say we wouldn't be here today doing what we're doing if we weren't, in somebody's mind, capable of doing that. If somebody hadn't stepped into our lives and support us and gave us the confidence that maybe we didn't think we could do. Paul writes in Romans 15, "We who are strong in the faith ought to help the weak in order to build up the faith." We all need confidence. When somebody believes in you, it brings out the best in you. It gives you courage. Don't tell people what they are. Tell them what they could be. Build them up every chance you get. A guy by the name of Ken Blanchard, who wrote the book, The 1 Minute Manager, said, "Catch people doing something right and tell them." We all need encouragement. Ever since I've been a pastor, I have kept a file in my office of every letter, every note, every card that I received over the years that was even just a little bit encouraging. I had been doing that now for several years of letters and cards and notes. And when I begin to feel just a little bit down or a little bit discouraged and I need something to lift me up, I go to that file. I read through both of the letters over and over again. It's nice to know that my mother and Bonnie at one time thought I was doing something. So we all need encouragement. Jesus also tells us to give people honest counsel or advice. There is no progress with anyone without learning. And there is no learning without feedback. We all need honest feedback given to us in love. Since none of us are perfect, our perception gets off base sometimes, and we need people to say, "Whoa, wait a minute, you're going the wrong way. You need to turn around." We all need people who will lay it out on the line for us in a very loving and honest way. Proverbs 27 says, "People learn from one another, just as iron sharpens iron." We have the ability to bring out the best in one another. An honest answer is a true sign of friendship. A real friend will tell you when you're making a mistake, and a real friend will level with you. They care enough to make sure that you are connected. They'll lay it on the line. Even when it's painful, they will tell you the truth. You focus on affirming the person, and you then correct the behavior and speak the truth in love. The last thing we'll look at that we are told or shown in the Bible that we need to do in order to cultivate deep friendships and deep relationships is that it's important to give that person, give the other person full credit. If you want to be a people builder, bring out the best in the people that are close to you in their lives, and then give them all the credit. Praise the growth and the changes you do see in their lives. Jesus said, let us have real, warm affection for each other and a willingness to let others have the credit. Many of you have seen signs that says God can do great things through people as long as they don't worry about who gets the credit. Usually we like to share the blame and keep the credit. But God says the mark of maturity, the mark of true, deep, genuine relationships is accepting the blame and sharing or giving away all of the credit. It's the exact opposite of what we do. Well, we have covered quite a bit today, actually. We looked at what we can do in order to develop relationships and friendships that will last an eternity. We need to be committed. We need to be considerate, confidential, candid, and consistent. And we looked at the importance of being a people builder, all of which is designed to help us make more meaningful relationships with the people around us. We all know that there is more to life than just living for yourself. There must be a cause, a reason, a purpose that we are here and that we are not just taking up space. All of us need somebody in our lives who can inspire us to be what we could be. There are people in your life that God wants to use you in order to bring out the best of these people. God wants you to be a people builder. You can be a home builder. You can be a body builder. You can be a reputation builder, a retirement nest egg builder, but none of those last forever. But there is something that's going to last an eternity. There is no more worthwhile endeavor in life than to be known and to be a builder of people. Help people succeed and you will succeed. Help people to find out what God wants from their lives, and you will find out what God wants for your life. Help in developing their character, and your character will also benefit. Amen. Could we have